Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice, at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
And by airs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at airs.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
Become a global player in your field.
Cross Culture to Go provides virtual support for your global business and career success.
We can help you thrive in 140 plus countries and markets.
On the web at crossculturetogo.com.
Hi, this is Ed Cohen again, and you're on Global TV Talk Show, and today we're doing Global Travel Talk TV. Wow. This is an edition with Mark Anderson, who's the CEO of AdventureVacationsInc.com. And he's based in La Jolla, which is a nice place to be. And I'm in downtown San Diego, and you're going to be taken to Provence, southern France. Wow. Let's welcome Mark Anderson.
Bonjour, Ed.
Bonjour, comment allez-vous?
Très bien, très bien.
Yeah, c'est bien. So we're going to talk today about the lovely area of the world called Provence. Is it L'Eure or La? It's probably L'Eure Provence, right?
Yes,
I
it
think
would
so.
be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So we have some photos, not too many, but we want to have a talk with you because you're an expert in France, as well as Italy, Greece, and other places, Tahiti, Fiji. So, but we're going to talk about southern France today because it's time to go back, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I understand you're headed there in a couple of weeks, unless they shut down the borders again. So today is September 3, and it's 2021. And Mark Anderson has been in the travel business a lifetime. How long have you been in the travel biz?
Oh, I'd say for at least half my life, maybe a little longer. Since I was in my 20s.
All right, and
Good long time.
How many times have you been to Provence? Guess.
I've been going there since I was 20 years old, so I would estimate, God, maybe 20 times.
Oh, I would have thought more, but okay. What the heck?
Could be.
Yeah. Okay. So I see you have the world on your shoulder. And so we're going to spin that globe and go to Provence in France. So producer Paul is showing a website that we're building, a global PR website. And there you see the logo for Adventure Vacations, and AdventureVacationsInc.com will get you to a lot of information. And there's the email for Adventure Mark right there. So let's scroll down a bit, Paul. And here is Mr. Paul. And so I asked Mark Anderson to, if you go back up, please. There we go. I've asked Mark to give me a quote, and here it is. So I'm going to read it a little bit, but then I'm going to be quiet, Mark, because I'd like you to go a little deeper. So you quoted, I remember telling a client once that if I had 2 weeks to live, I'd spend it driving the back roads of Provence. So the back roads are in the mountains?
Exactly. The back roads are anywhere off the freeway, really. France has a number of different classifications of roads, but my favorite are the D roads, and those are the little two-lane roads, which are typically canopied with plane trees going to the little towns and in the really old villages and the mountain towns. And there's a classification in France of the most beautiful villages in the world, and many of them are located in Provence, and they have to have a certain designation, but they're just visually stunning, quaint, unspoiled, well taken care of, beautiful little places. And yeah, as I mentioned, I've been going there since I was 20 years old, hitchhiking through there and camping on the beach in Saint Maxime. And I just really enjoy it. It's a particularly favorite part of the world for me, as it is for many people who have turned Peter Mayle into a worldwide bestseller with his Year in Provence. And the past 30 years, people have been visiting it. So yeah, it's a very special place.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the difference between the coast, the Riviera, Nice and Cannes and other towns that people think of Provence, people who aren't especially expert, but they love the area. So let's look at this map, which was part of a tour book. And Paul, if you could scroll up just a little bit so we can get a full picture of that regionalization of Provence and Côte d'Azur. So you can see down the bottom, Mark, I'd like you to take over from here. We're right in the middle in the white area, that's called Var. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what is Var? That's a neighborhood? No, that's a section of the area, right?
So France is divided into 20 different regions. And the region that we're going to be talking about is the southeast part of France, which is bordered by Italy and the Mediterranean. And that area is called Provence, Alpes, Côte d'Azur, which encompasses the area between roughly Nimes to the west and all the way up to the Italian border on the east side, and the Alps on the north side. So it's mostly a rural agricultural area, with the exception, of course, some of the largest cities like Marseille and Nice. And then, of course, you have the Riviera. The Riviera is that section of coastline which travels from Saint-Tropez, which is where Var is located, or Saint-Tropez is located in the province, sub-province of Var, on up to the Italian border. So within the province of Provence, Alps, Côte d'Azur are located these smaller neighborhoods, of which Var is one of them.
So let's talk a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about what we're looking at here on this. These are again our sub-regions, and you see in the yellow on the bottom there, Marseille is on the bottom. And you can't see it right now, but Marseille is at the mouth of the Rhone River, right? And it goes all the way north, all the way up to Lyon and beyond, Avignon. And that's a real big city. It's a very old city. It's a very busy port. And you can see there's an airport there. And then if you look all the way down to the right in the brown, Alpes Maritime, Nice has an airport. And then there's a smaller one in Toulon, as you could see. But what do you recommend as a travel expert, a travel counselor? Do people fly into Paris and then take the TGV?
That's my favorite way to go. If your primary purpose is to access the Provence, as outlined in Peter Mayle's books, that would be the area around Bouches-du-Rhône or Luberon and Avignon. So if you're flying to Paris, you can take a TGV first class for 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours gets you from Paris to Avignon, or even to Arles, or even to Marseille. So if you're in Paris, I say take the train. It's a really very fast, comfortable, easy way to do it. If your focus is to go more to the Riviera, I would say fly there because you can reach Nice from a variety of airports, from any major European capital, even United States has flights to Nice, say from New York. And the only problem with trying to take the train is, although the high-speed train goes nonstop from Paris to Marseille, it'll stop at every single little town between Marseille and Nice, which takes an additional 3 hours. So to get to Nice from Paris by train takes about 6 hours because the train is a major way of getting to all those little towns along the coast.
I get you. Okay. So that's really good advice. Now, what about driving? If somebody were in Paris and then they were to drive south, how long would it take typically to get to Nice by car from Paris?
Well, typically that would be about an all-day drive. I don't necessarily recommend it, but many Frenchmen do that, and even people in Northern Europe make the drive. The primary auto route will get you down to Avignon, and then you'd be going along the coast roads from there. But it's much easier to, say, fly into Nice or take the train to Avignon and pick up a rental car, which is what I'm going to be doing myself in about 10 days. And there's a couple of companies, Auto Europe and Europe Car, were very inexpensive, reasonable rentals, and you just get off the back roads and start wandering about.
Okay. So how much time is that in driving from Paris to Avignon?
I'm going to guess it's going to be about probably 6 hours.
Yeah, but
So not too terribly long, but it's 6 hours of freeway driving. So it'll be, like driving from here to Santa Barbara.
yeah, that's a long trip.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
so
like I say,
yeah, so your recommendation is to take the TGV to Avignon and go get a car from there.
exactly, that would be the preferred way. Or the train also goes from Avignon. You can take it to either Arles or to Marseille, all of which are on the same train route. But Avignon, I think, is a good starting point.
Okay, and you see Avignon on the left in the orange color, Van Cluse, and Avignon is right there touching on the border of the Bouches du Rhône, the yellow.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so I remember years ago, we were in Avignon. We did a boat cruise down the Rhone, and we stopped there and spent quite a bit of time in Avignon and went to the Palais des Papes, which is a Palace of the Popes. A long time ago, that was where the Pope was, rather than
Exactly.
Rome.
A lot of people don't realize that the Catholic Church wasn't always headquartered in Rome. There was a time back around 1200 when the church was split in two, and the Catholic Church relocated to Avignon as their capital to get away from the corruption in Rome or wherever. But that lasted probably for a generation, then it went back. But at the time, it became quite the focus of society. But also one of the things below Avignon, you mentioned the Bouches du Rhône, which means mouth of the Rhone River, is Arles, and that's famous for Van Gogh, and that's where he lived for a couple of years and painted some of his greatest works of art. And below there is the Saint-Maurice-de-la-Mer. That's where the flamingos and the gypsies go, and there's so many places to take advantage of down there.
So at Saint Marie, you mentioned flamingos and gypsies. Now, when you say flamingos, those are birds, right? And whereas gypsies are people.
Exactly, because the Camargue area, which is a large marshland, it's the delta of the Rhone River, And because it's a marshland, they have all kinds of exotic birds, but pink flamingos are the most famous. They also have wild horses. They also have the wild bulls of the Camargue. So it's a very kind of a Wild West feeling. And it's also Saint-Marie-de-la-Mer is where one of the major rendezvous points for the gypsies that come there every year. And it's quite a sight.
Wow. Wow, that is fascinating. So Arles is a hill town, right? Medieval hill town?
Yes, it is. It's actually a Roman town. It's one of the best preserved Roman towns in Europe. And it has a marvelous stadium and a theater and forum and many, many Roman ruins. I stayed there last year, and one of the walls in my hotel room was a 2,000-year-old Roman wall, which I thought was pretty incredible if that wall could talk. But it's a marvelous town to walk around in and just enjoy. And that's, like I say, where Van Gogh got much of his inspiration. You can stand in little markers all around the town and stand where Vincent stood when he painted, like his famous Cafe at Night or Starry Night, or many, many other famous paintings were painted there.
Fascinating. Okay, so now the weather is different in the French Riviera as opposed to Digne in Alpes de Haute-Provence, right?
Exactly. The further north you get, the closer you get to the Alps, which are snow-covered almost year-round. And what makes the Provence so popular is it's really a haven for the weather refugees from the northern parts of Europe. That's why Peter Mayle went there. That's why the Germans and everybody heads to the beach. And the places, they've been doing this for like 150 years. The famous blue train down to the Riviera, Queen Victoria, and there's just a long history of people who live in places where the weather is not that nice, through down to the Riviera where the weather is nice most of the year. It's not quite as good as San Diego. It does get pretty cold in the winter months of January, February, and even March. And it does get a bit hot in August, but it's still, in comparison with the rest of Europe, a weather refuge, which is why so many people have holiday homes down there and second homes.
So I've got an American stupid question here. So looking at the word nice, it says nice in American, right? So
Exactly.
is that because it's so nice? And yet in France, they have to call it Nice.
It's just because originally it was a Roman province. The word Provence comes from Provence, and this was the first of the Roman Empire's provinces that they took over. Once they had conquered all of Italy, they spread west and took over Provence. And 2,000 years ago was a retirement home for old generals, where they could get them away from Rome, where they might cause trouble, and they set them up with their own farms and such. And so the Roman Empire extended all the way from the Italian border across Provence all the way to Spain. So that's why there's such a wealth of Roman ruins there.
So I'm looking at the Saint-Tropez area, and it sits right on a point. It's famous beach. So what is to the between Saint-Tropez going west over towards Toulon? I know it's a very different environment in Toulon, but closer to Saint-Tropez during the right around those coves over there on the south coast. What's over there?
Well, you have a number of little towns like Cassis and Cioto and the famous Calanques, which are inland waterways that are kind of like sheltered bays with high cliffs on each side of them. And they even have boat tours down there. And they have a lot of vineyards there. It's very famous for their rosés and for their Côte de Rhône wines. And the story is in 600 BC, a Greek showed up in Marseille with an olive tree in one hand and grapevines in the other. and founded the town of Marseille. And married the king's daughter, and he gave him a bunch of land, and that was the beginning of the olive and wine production in that part of the world. So quite a bit of history, and wonderful wines and great olive oil and beef and food and everything.
Wow. Well, thank you, Producer Paul. Let's go to the map showing the wine area. This will be really interesting, and it'll make you really thirsty, especially if it's at happy hour. Or any time, actually. Yeah. Okay,
It's
so
making me thirsty.
we're going to get to that in just a minute, but what we're going to see is a color-coded map of the area, and where it'll portray certain colors, and the colors represent certain wines. And that will be an interesting story. So who's this guy, Peter Males? You keep referring to him.
Well, he wrote a little book called A Year in Provence, which turned into an international bestseller, and essentially was just his recollections of daily life in Provence. And the funny thing was, he went down there, when he was 50 years old to write a novel, and he just couldn't get the novel started, but he started writing little anecdotes about daily life in Provence. And his publisher said, forget the novel, put this into a book, let's put it out there. And it turned into an international bestseller, and people just came in droves to Provence. And that's, the joy and the sadness of it. And it became overrun with tourists, and it drove up all the property prices, and but it also made a lot of locals fairly wealthy, because prior to that, it was a rather poor agricultural area. And he really just put it on the map, and he wrote books about Provence for 30 years until his death last year. And probably the worst thing he did was he made a lot of landowners rich, because everybody wanted a place down there. And so people come from all over the world just to have their little piece of paradise.
Yeah, well, that sounds pretty good. Okay, so let's talk while we're waiting for Paul to come back. Oh, here he is. Okay. So, we're going to look, first of all, let's stop right here. So you see on the left, map of France, and then in red is where we're talking about, right?
Right. I'm looking at the map of France, and that primarily shows the auto route and the train route down to Provence. So as you can see, it goes almost nonstop, straight down the middle of France, down to the Avignon area, and then it takes a slow meander eastward to the Italian border. So as I mentioned before, the TGV takes about 2.5 hours to get from Paris to Avignon, and then another 3 hours to meander along the coastline there.
So is there a recommended way other than the train, rather than sitting on the train and looking at the trees and the coastline? What do you recommend? Get off on a bus, or go out on a car, or what?
It all depends. I personally love, as I mentioned in my prologue there, my idea of happiness was to get in my little rental car and just bop around. And I particularly like getting lost. I don't use a GPS. I'm using an old-fashioned map. We're not even making reservations on this next trip. We have the first couple of nights reserved in Nice, and then we're going to make it up as we go along. So I've never had a problem just finding some town that I really like and looking around and say, this looks nice, and go rent a 3-star or 2-star or even a 1-star hotel. So I'd say that if you're comfortable driving, and if you stay on the back roads, you're probably the only one on the road most of the time, by all means do that, because that gives you the maximum freedom. Other than that, you can take the train, or you can take the bus, or you can, of course, fly to the main places like Marseille or Nice. and navigate from there. You can take motor coach tours. You can even hire a driver and a guide. There's any number of ways to do it.
Great. Okay.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a timely announcement.
Hi, I'm Sergey Gorbatov.
I'm Angela Lane.
Together we are researchers, writers and practitioners in the field of human resources.
And we've also been multi-country, multi-assignment career expats.
We owe our professional development and growth to a very large extent to the international assignment opportunities that we have had.
But in a world where distributed work may become the norm, we also want to understand what happened to the nature, duration, and purpose of international assignments.
Together with our colleague, Julian Dalzell from the University of South Carolina, we're undertaking a study on the future of expatriation.
And we'd value your contribution. You can participate in this important study by completing a simple 10-minute questionnaire.
Access the questionnaire by typing in your browser tinyurl.com/expert study. That's tinyurl.com/expert study. You can also find the link here on Ed's website next to this video.
Thank you for joining us in this study. In return for your contribution, we'll provide you with a copy of our research.
And of course, you'll be invited to an exclusive webinar hosted by Ed, where we will share our findings right here on Global Business News.
And so please go to tinyurl.com/expat study. Take the survey so that we can better understand the future of expatriation.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
Paul, if we could scroll down a bit till we get to the wine map. Everybody's getting thirsty. Oh, here's a little information about buses, but get in touch with Mark Anderson and he'll tell you all the stuff you need to know. Here we go. So you can see the text up here on the very top. The text says vineyards in Provence are spoilt. That's a British thing, I think, spoilt. If you can scroll down just a bit, there we go. No, scroll down a little bit so we can see the type. There we go. Vineyards in Provence are spoiled by nature with the climate and soil conditions ideally suited to producing a huge variety of wines. Now, if you look at this color map, and then just above it to the left is the type of wine. And the colors on the left of the writings relate to the color coding on the map, which is the general location of that kind of wine. So if you look at the second one from the bottom, it says Côte du Rhône, and it's dark blue. And so where would that be? Just above where it says Marseille? What do you think?
Côte du Rhône would be just above Avignon. Is that area north of Avignon around the town of Orange. And the interesting thing about Côte du Rhône is it has as many as 14 different varietals, all blended into one wine. Americans are so used to having a wine designated by the type of grape. We always, we're going to have a Cabernet or a Merlot or something like that, or some specific, variety of grape. Whereas in France and many other places, it's the region that counts. It's where it's grown. Côte just means hillside, really. It doesn't even mean coast. It just means the hillside. So it can be hillside over a river or a hillside over a town, or any type of hillside is a côte. And as I mentioned, all the different wines are all different, and it all depends on where they're grown and what varietals they do end up using. And of course, they also mentioned the terroir. So wine can vary from one part of a property to another, just depending on the hillside, the drainage, the earth, the sky, the sun, the wind, whatever. All gives it a distinct flavor.
So therefore, the wine in one part of the town could be on not a hillside, more or less flat, and other vineyard stretches of the vineyard would be elevated somewhat. And so they would get different shades of sun or air, and that would impact the soil content, right? And that's what creates the variations.
Exactly. And then how they blend it and how long it's aged and what kind of barrel it is. And there's so many, and when they harvest, how long they wait. Right now is harvest time. It kind of extends from now through next month. But there's so many different variables that go into it. But the wines in Europe are always designated by the region. And that region can be as small as like 2 acres, or it can be 200 acres or 2,000 acres. Different vineyards have different production capabilities. And the wine board, the DOIC, is very, very strict about exactly what types of wine you can put into what varietals you can put to call yours a Côte du Rhône or a Côte du Luberon or Cassis. So yeah, it seems arbitrary, but there's an exact science to it.
So is the Cassis wines, because it's closer to the ocean, sweeter?
That's hard to say. It would just really depend on who's growing it.
So we got to do a lot of tasting. I think we have to do that. That is.
But it's also very famous for the rosés. The most popular drink in terms of wine in Provence is rosé, because it's mostly hot and warm and sunny there. So people like to drink a chilled glass of rosé on a nice spring, sunny day, summer day. So that's very popular, as is pastis. Pastis is the most popular liqueur down there, which is, as you may know, is a licorice flavored anisette, which they cut with water. And that's also very popular, like Ricard.
So people in France who know what they're doing, they drink a lot of wine, but they don't get drunk.
Amazingly, no. And and I've been to some French lunches the last 2 hours and then they'll drink all the way through lunch, and they'll turn around and do it all again that afternoon. For dinner, it's probably because they pace themselves or talk a lot or savor it. It's wine drinking is a serious business there, so they do give proper consideration to what they're drinking there. They study it, and they will sniff it, gargle it, whatever. But that it is true that they do drink probably 3 or 4 times per capita what Americans do.
So isn't it true that they try to pair it? People try to pair wines with certain foods.
Exactly. That's the whole art is wine pairing. Which food does the most to enhance a wine, or which wine will enhance your meal. They always have a really hearty red with your barbecue or with your beef, or a lighter wine with your chicken or fish, white wine with snails, just all depends.
Well, I am really getting thirsty, I'll tell you that. So this has really been a great adventure with you, Mark Anderson. So
Thank you.
let's look at Avignon on this color map here. It looks like it's only got 2 wines, maybe 3, but there's actually a ton of different wines, right? Huge variance.
There is, in fact, if you go in the Papal Palace, there is a wine tasting area in the basement of the Papal Palace, and one of the famous wines is Châteauneuf du Pape, which means the Pope's new house, because he went up north a little bit and he started his own vineyards, around the city of Orange. But there's many famous wines like Châteauneuf du Pape and Gigondas, but the amazing part is they're all on very small vineyards. Some of the world's most famous wines are grown on just a few acres. And, I've seen wines down there go for as much as $5,000 a bottle. Not that anybody would ever pay that much, but some do. But it truly has some high quality wine.
Fascinating story, Mark Anderson. Okay, so you're going with a friend in a couple of weeks, and are you all vaxxed up? You get your proof, the QR code, and ready to go, right?
Well, yes and no. I am vaxxed and ready to go. There is a French letter of testimony that I'm healthy. There is a French health pass that they want you to fill out and apply for, mostly to get into museums. I did do it, but they told me this morning they're so backed up they can't process it. But I told them try harder. But then I spoke to the LA office of French tourism. They said, well, it's just kind of something to have. It's not absolutely necessary. Just some people ask for it, some don't. But I've got my vaccination cards, my passport, so I'm good to go.
Good. Okay. Well, this has been a delight. Okay. Once again, Mark Anderson is the expert, and his site has a lot more information than we're going to talk about here in this short time. So it's adventurevacationsinc.com, and it'll get you right to the smiley guy, Mark Anderson. Thanks for being our guest on Travel TV Talk Show. I really appreciate it. And let's think about where we're going to take our audience on the next show. Shall we do Greek islands? Shall we do Venezia and the Dolomites? Or do you think we should get wet and hot and go to Tahiti or Hawaii?
Oh, good question. They're all so appealing. All so appealing.
So think about that. And here we are, our last slide. Where do you think this is? Looking down on the Mediterranean, of course. So we're looking down on the Riviera, and we're in Haute Provence, or what?
Well, this looks very much to me like a castle lookout just south of Nice, looking down on the town, or it really could be anywhere along the coast because there's a number of beautiful viewpoints everywhere you look. This tells me it looks to be somewhere near Nice, but anywhere along the French Riviera, and that's a beautiful, beautiful place just to hang out. So we could do a whole segment on just the Riviera. There's so many towns like Cannes and Saint-Tropez, and of course Nice and Saint-Maxime, and the Italian Riviera.
And Monaco is right there, right?
Monaco, yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so as you could see, we saved the sizzle for the last. And once again, it's Mark Anderson at AdventureVacationsInc.com. Thank you for being on Global TV.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you,
Appreciate
and
it.
bon voyage.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.